In today's video, I want to take you into the kind of heartbreak no one ever sees coming. The kind that knocks the air right out of your chest and leaves you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the person sleeping next to you every night. You see, every relationship has its secrets. Some are harmless, like sneaking the last cookie or pretending to like your partner's favorite movie. But others are like slow-burning fires that consume everything in their path. Trust, respect, peace. And I never imagined that my seemingly perfect marriage would become one of those stories. It all began like most tragedies do, quietly. We had just moved into a new neighborhood a few months earlier. My husband, Aaron, and I were in what I thought was a fresh chapter of our lives. New house, new energy, new beginnings. The girl next door, Lana, was sweet, friendly, maybe too friendly. At first, I didn't think much of it. She was young, vibrant, and always smiling. The kind of girl who could charm a room without even trying. I admired that about her, trusted her even. Never once did I think I would come to associate her name with the biggest betrayal of my life. The signs were small at first. A sudden change in Aaron's routine, late-night work calls that never used to exist. He started paying more attention to his appearance. New cologne, freshly ironed shirts, gym sessions he never had time for before. I noticed, but I convinced myself I was overthinking. After all, we had been married for almost 8 years. Things get routine, right? Maybe he was just trying to rekindle the spark. But the gut always knows. One evening, while folding laundry in the bedroom, I saw his phone light up. It wasn't the message that caught my attention. It was the way he jumped to grab it, like a teenager hiding something. I didn't say anything. Not yet. I needed proof. I needed more than just a feeling. What I didn't expect was to catch them, in real time, in the very house next door, doing the unthinkable. I stood there, frozen. My heart felt like it had stopped beating. My hands shook. My legs nearly gave out. It wasn't just one betrayal. It wasn't a one-time mistake. It was repeated, planned, hidden in plain sight. And the worst part? The look on his face when he saw me. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't apologetic. He just stared. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's a story about the lies we believe to protect ourselves, the blind faith we offer to people who don't deserve it, and the breaking point that turns love into rage. The truth is, you never really know someone until they show you who they are when they think you're not watching. So if you've ever felt that gut feeling, if you've ever had to smile through the pain because you weren't ready to face the truth, stay with me, because what happened next will leave you speechless. And no, this story doesn't end where you think it does. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the wall, replaying every moment of the last few months in my mind like a movie I couldn't pause. Every smile he gave me, every "I love you" whispered before sleep, now felt like a carefully rehearsed lie. How long had this been going on? Was it weeks? Months? Did he ever really love me? Or was I just convenient? The house next door suddenly felt like a monster crouched outside my window. Lana, the girl I'd waved at every morning, who once borrowed sugar and brought over cookies. She wasn't just some random woman. She was part of my everyday life. I trusted her, I welcomed her, and she welcomed him into places he should have never been. The betrayal stung from both sides. It wasn't just my husband who broke something. She did too. But here's where it gets strange. The next morning, Aaron acted normal. Too normal. He kissed my forehead, poured himself coffee, asked about my day ahead like nothing happened. His calmness made my skin crawl. I kept wondering, was I the only one shaken? Did he think I wouldn't say anything? Or worse, did he just not care? That look in his eyes last night, it wasn't guilt, it was indifference, like I didn't matter anymore. I started noticing little things I hadn't paid attention to before. His phone was always face down. He never left it unattended. He'd step outside to take calls, sometimes late into the night. There were receipts in his pockets from places he told me he'd never been. I felt like I was living with a stranger wearing my husband's face. And Lana, she didn't even try to hide it. She still smiled at me like nothing had happened. That fake politeness, that careful, sweet tone she used whenever she saw me. I started to feel like I was the only one who knew something was deeply wrong. Or maybe they both knew I knew, and just didn't care. But I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. What really scared me, though, wasn't what they did. It was what else they might be hiding. Because the more I started digging, the more things stopped making sense. This wasn't just an affair. There were layers, secrets within secrets. And the deeper I looked, the more I realized I hadn't even scratched the surface. And trust me, what I discovered next changed everything. The more I tried to carry on with life as usual, the more impossible it became. I couldn't focus at work. I couldn't laugh with friends. I couldn't even look at Aaron without feeling like I was looking at a stranger. But I kept pretending. I needed time. Time to figure out what was really happening beneath the surface. Because something told me this wasn't just about cheating. There was more. One evening, I waited until Aaron was asleep and quietly took his phone from the nightstand. My hands were shaking. I knew this was a line I hadn't crossed before, but I also knew I had to. His passcode hadn't changed. That alone gave me a strange sense of relief, like maybe a small part of him still thought he had nothing to hide. But once I opened his messages, my heart dropped. There weren't just texts from Lana. There were others, conversations with names I didn't recognize, different women, some messages deleted, some coded, all of them laced with things I wish I could unsee. What kind of man had I been sleeping next to all these years? And then, as if fate had a cruel sense of timing, Lana started showing up even more. She'd be outside watering plants in full view of our kitchen window. She'd wave, smile, pretend like we were still friendly neighbors. It wasn't just an affair anymore. It felt like a taunt, like she wanted me to know she wasn't going anywhere. But what really caught my attention was the receipt I found crumpled in his coat pocket. It was from a hotel, a place out of town, 2 nights. And the date? It was when Aaron told me he was on a business trip in another city. This wasn't a simple affair. It was something deeper, something much darker. I stared at that hotel receipt for what felt like hours. My chest was tight, my throat dry. The name of the hotel was familiar, because it wasn't far. It wasn't even in the city he claimed to be in. He had lied. Again. And this time, it wasn't just text messages or strange behavior. This was concrete, proof. I took a picture of it on my phone just in case. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. Something inside me shifted after that night. I stopped crying. I stopped second-guessing myself. Instead, I started watching, quietly, carefully. I tracked his habits, noticed how his phone would be on silent at certain hours, how he suddenly had meetings every Friday evening, how Lana's car was never in her driveway when he was gone. I started connecting dots I hadn't wanted to see before, but the turning point came when I followed him. I told him I was going out with friends and watched as he got into his car, thinking he was in the clear. I followed from a distance, my hands gripping the wheel so hard they ached. He drove across town, pulled into a quiet parking lot behind the same hotel from the receipt. My heart was pounding. I waited, watched, and then she arrived. Lana. She slid into the passenger seat like she'd done it 100 times. He kissed her, right there. No shame, no hesitation. They both laughed, completely unaware I was just a few feet away, watching everything crumble. That moment broke something in me I didn't know was still holding on, but it also gave me clarity. I knew I had to do something, and I had to do it soon, before it got even worse. I drove home that night in silence, heart racing and hands trembling on the steering wheel. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just stared ahead, numb. My marriage, my trust, my peace, everything I had built was crumbling faster than I could process. But deep down, I knew that night was only the beginning. Something still didn't sit right. Aaron and Lana were clearly involved, but the way they carried themselves, so confident, so relaxed, made me wonder, were they really that careless? Or did they know I'd found out and just didn't care? The next morning, I got my answer. While cleaning out one of the drawers in our living room, I stumbled across a manila envelope. It was tucked beneath old receipts and random papers. I never remembered seeing it before. Out of curiosity, or maybe instinct, I opened it. What I saw nearly knocked the breath out of me. Inside were printed photos. Not of Aaron and Lana, but of me, taken from different angles, leaving the gym, walking into work, sitting alone in a cafe. Some even looked like they were taken from across the street, through our own windows. At first, I couldn't understand it. Why were there photos of me? Who took them? And why were they hidden in our own home? My hands started to sweat. My mind spun in 1,000 directions. Had Aaron been spying on me? Or worse, was someone else involved in all of this? Suddenly, it wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was something else, something bigger. It wasn't just emotional betrayal. It was beginning to feel like I was being watched, controlled, manipulated. I thought I had been the one uncovering secrets, but what if I was the one being set up all along? I looked over at the man I thought I knew, now sitting calmly on the couch, scrolling through his phone. How long had he been keeping tabs on me, and why? My heart started to beat faster than ever before. This wasn't just a love affair. It felt like a trap, and somehow, I was caught right in the middle of it. What came next would change everything. That night, I waited until Aaron fell asleep. I took the envelope with the photos and locked myself in the bathroom. My mind was racing, but one thing was clear. I couldn't stay quiet any longer. This wasn't just infidelity. This was something far more dangerous. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I made copies of everything, texts, photos, receipts, and sent them to my email. Then I made one call. Not to a friend, not to a family member, but to a private investigator. I needed someone who could dig deeper, into him, into Lana, into everything. Within days, I started receiving updates. The investigator found that Aaron had not just been unfaithful, he had been living a double life. Lana wasn't just the girl next door. She was connected to him from years ago. They'd met long before we ever moved into that neighborhood. Our move wasn't a fresh start. It was planned. Lana had moved in first. Aaron followed. And I, naive, trusting, was placed right between them, like a pawn in some twisted game. But the biggest shock came when the investigator discovered that Lana was using a false identity. Her real name was connected to a fraud case from out of state, a case Aaron was also linked to. My heart sank as I listened. He wasn't just cheating. They were running a scam together, and I was in the middle of it. Our finances, our home, my identity, all at risk. That night, I confronted him. I laid out the photos, the reports, everything. And for the first time, he didn't deny it. He didn't argue. He just looked at me and said, "You weren't supposed to find out." But I did. I reported everything. To the police, to our lawyer, to the bank. I took control of my life back. And just when I thought it was over, I received an anonymous message. One sentence, no name. "You were never the only target." And that's when I realized I still didn't know the whole story. That message haunted me for days. I kept reading it over and over again. You were never the only target. I didn't know what it meant or who it was from, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to live in fear anymore. I had already lost so much, my trust, my marriage, the version of my life I thought was real. I wasn't going to lose myself too. After turning everything over to the authorities, Aaron was questioned. It turned out the fraud they had been involved in went deeper than I ever imagined. Credit scams, identity theft, and stolen funds, most of it traced back to joint accounts I didn't even know existed. Lana disappeared almost instantly. Her house was vacated overnight. No trace, no word, like she was never even there. That silence was louder than any confrontation could have been. I spent the following months rebuilding emotionally, legally, and financially. It wasn't easy. There were moments I broke down, moments I questioned everything, even myself. But slowly, Piece by piece, I started to heal. I closed accounts, cleared my name, changed passwords. I got a new place, somewhere far from that neighborhood. Somewhere with no memories of him or her or any of it. People often ask how I could have missed the signs. And the truth is, love makes you blind. Not because you don't want to see, but because you believe in the person you chose. You believe in the promises they made, but when that trust is broken, the reality hits harder than anything else. In the end, I wasn't just a woman who caught her husband cheating with the girl next door. I was a woman who uncovered a lie so deep it almost swallowed me whole. I came out on the other side stronger, wiser, and no longer afraid of the truth. And that final message? I never found out who sent it. Maybe it was a warning, maybe it was closure, or maybe it was a reminder that not every betrayal is about love. Sometimes it's about control, power, gain. But now I know better. And I'll never ignore my instincts again. That chapter is over, and this time I'm writing the next one, for me.